Power 923 Jams, the Broadway Joe Morning Show. As we get ready for the eclipse, we are honored to have a NASA scientist with us. And man, I'm going to say all of this. She's a quality engineer there in NASA. Just when you say NASA, you know that this is really, really big. But we have Dr. Renee Horton with us this morning, and she's here in Little Rock for an entire week. She's going to be speaking with a lot of our young people about the STEM programs and the importance of getting into STEM. But she's here for the eclipse. It's a big deal. We're expecting close to 1 million people to be in the state of Arkansas to see the eclipse that's coming up on Monday. Dr. Horton, it's an honor to talk with you this morning. I've been looking for someone to talk a little bit more about science, space, and the eclipse, and they said, we've got a NASA scientist coming to town by the name of Dr. Renee Horton. You got to get her on your show. So I can't tell you how much an honor it is for me to talk with you about something so special, especially for someone like you that's a scientist. And this started for you a long, long time ago. I did read some things on you in prepping for this interview, and you've had a telescope for a long, long time. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why this eclipse is so special, not just for you, but for the entire state of Arkansas.
Well, for the entire state of Arkansas, this is happening, and it will not happen for another 200 years.
Wow.
So a total eclipse doesn't always happen, and you know, Arkansas is right in the line. Well, they will receive a total eclipse, which is amazing. And so for anyone that's 1 year old on that gets to see this, it'll be a once in a lifetime for them.
So Dr.
I'm super excited to be with you guys for that.
So for you, how many eclipses have you seen in your career, in your life?
I've seen 4 partials, and so this will be my first total.
That's hard to believe. Being a scientist, I would think that you would be, but for Arkansas, that letting people know how important this is for the state. But talk a little bit about your background. I mentioned that you got that telescope as a child, and I think I read where your father gave it to you because you were always into the STEM programs and wanting to know more.
I have always been into science, so to the point my grandmother made my Barbie doll a lab coat. So that's how much I've been into science. I got my telescope at 9, and it was the first time for me to visually see the moon for myself. And so I was super excited, oh my God, this is something that I could do, that I could be a part of. And so I was really excited about that. So 9 was my first telescope. And believe it or not, my father purchased me another telescope recently when I turned 50. So I think he liked giving them to me. But my brother went with me on top of the house to actually look at what the moon looked like, and I was sold. So at 9, I wanted to be an astronaut and find out what else was in the universe besides me, besides us, and where we stood. And at 17, I found out I was hearing impaired, and so it kind of shifted my life and made things a little bit differently. So by the grace of God, I am now sending people to the moon.
And I understand that's one of your big projects that you're working on with NASA, and that's the next space launch to the moon. And here in this country, it's kind of like we went away from sending man to the moon and for a number of years, but now all of a sudden it's kind of back on the agenda again, and I understand that's going to be coming up very soon.
Yes, and actually the rollout for Core Stage 2. So Core Stage 2 is what's built here in New Orleans, and which is the base for Artemis 2. And Artemis 2 is due to launch in 2025. And so we're about to actually send down the biggest piece from New Orleans down to Florida to be integrated. Going back to the moon is huge for us because there's so much science to be learned. And for us to be able to go deeper into space, our first step is back on the moon.
Fantastic. If you're just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Renee Horton. She's a NASA space scientist, and one of her big projects is coming up with sending man back to the moon. She's going to be there working on that project, but she's here in Arkansas for an entire week, and it's all because of the eclipse. If you missed it, she just said this would be her first total eclipse. And if you would, Doc, for a lot of our people that are listening this morning, a lot of people don't really know how much this means to so many people and the magnitude of seeing a total eclipse. I'm just kind of blown away because you said this would be the first time that you've ever seen a total eclipse. Talk a little bit about the difference between the total eclipse and partial eclipse that you've seen in the past.
So when you see a partial eclipse, it's going to be where the sun is being obscured by the moon, right? And so it'll pass in front of it, and then it'll totally block out the sun. The thing about a total eclipse is it depends on where you are in the world. So we'll be experiencing this total eclipse from all the way from Mexico all the way up to Canada. Well, there will be other people who will not be able to observe the total eclipse. So for me, this is the first time that I've actually traveled to be able to see one, that it actually happens. And so for those people who aren't really big on traveling to see science or to do science, to be able to be in a space where it's going to happen is huge. Like, you will be able to witness history without leaving your home for most people in Little Rock. But you said earlier, 1 billion people will descend upon Little Rock because that's how important it is. It's this type of science and being able to truly be able to visually see science for the first time, which makes it great for everyone.
Dr. Horton, I can't thank you enough. I want to thank the Deltas and everybody that was involved with making this happen, because I've been looking for a scientist, and when they said an African American, I was like, really? And then NASA on top of it. I can't tell you how honored I am to be able to talk with you about this big event and letting everyone in the state of Arkansas know how important it is that you're a part of history and you don't even have to leave Arkansas. How often do people, and you said it a few minutes ago, for you, your first time seeing a total eclipse and you don't have to go very far to see it. But for a lot of people here in the state of Arkansas, will this happen again in their lifetime?
No, it won't. And so I do want to stress, though, please do not look at the sun with your naked eyes. There are a ton of places that are handing out the glasses that you can get from almost anywhere. And so it's going to be really important to protect yourself. You can look at it when it's in the total blackout, when the moon is right in front of it. But as soon as the moon starts to move again, you want to definitely protect your eyes again, because you don't want to get to damage your eyes. I will be located at the STEM festival that they're having at the Arkansas State Fairgrounds. That's going to be on Thursday from 9 to 11:30. I'll be there. And then again on Saturday, I'll be with the Deltas at their community preparation exposure, and that'll be from 10 to 12. And then I'll be at the Pyramid Art Gallery bookstore signing books from 2 to 4 on Saturday.
All right. So where will you be located during the eclipse?
I will be at the park, so at one of the national parks.
Okay. Well, Doctor, thank you again for taking the time to talk with us this morning. We are talking with Dr. Renee Horton, a NASA scientist. She's in Arkansas. She's an African American, and she's going to be here to witness, as she said, for her first time in her life, a total eclipse. And I think for a lot of people here in the state of Arkansas, it will be a first-time event and a historical event, and that's why there's so many people coming to our state to witness this. Anything in closing, Dr. Horton, that you'd like to leave our listeners with? I'm so glad you addressed the eye thing and how important it is to wear safety glasses when you watch, special type of glasses when you're watching it.
Yes, and the thing I want to leave with is go out and enjoy STEM, science. Go out and revel in the technology that we have around us. Encourage these students to be in engineering and math and in science, simply because each one of us holds a skill, but each one of us holds a piece of the puzzle. And if we're willing to give our skill set to the area that we love the most, then that's when we'll all flourish as a community and as mankind. Amen.
Well, Dr. Horton, thank you again. Thank you for coming to Little Rock. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing while you're here, especially with our young people that are in the STEM field, and letting them know that especially you're a great example to young women out there that you too can be in sciences, which we see a lot of men doing it all the time, but it's just so great to see an African-American female and to be right here in Little Rock. Hopefully I'll get the chance to bump into you with your travels and your speaking engagements that you have while you're here. But again, we just thank you for taking the time to talk with us on the importance of history making here in Arkansas. Thank you again, Dr. Horton.
Thank you for having me.
All right.